Hello, we're going to talk about the two most important things that you can do with your inventory outside of obviously selling lots of merchandise at your register. The two areas that have a tremendous amount of impact on your inventory levels, of course, are purchasing and receiving. And not only do they affect your inventory levels, but they also are going to have a very intrinsic part of your profitability as well. Purchasing allows you to replenish and rebalance your inventory levels as those items have hopefully sold very well at your register. Inside of purchasing, you can also review historical information about those items. And purchasing will let you do an automated comparison between your on-hand and your order points that you have already set within your inventory. Purchasing also will allow you to create a purchase order on the fly, totally independent of any computer calculations. It will allow you to sit there and work with a rep who may be recommending some very exciting new items to you, or let you create purchase orders if you come back from the market. The receiving side of the coin, we'll touch on that when we're finished with purchasing, but receiving allows you then to actually accept those items that you have created purchase orders for, and allows you to increase your quantities on hand, and also allows you to edit your costs and your prices, because you typically notice that costs have changed at the point in time that your vendor is invoicing you for that product that has just been shipped in. And those cost increases, of course, we always want to pass on through to our customer. The recommended order process is the automated way of rebalancing your inventory levels. When I select new here, it's going to allow me to review my order recommendation and potentially make any changes to it that I feel need to be made. If I'm buying, I typically will buy from a particular vendor as opposed to buying for a department, although we can do our purchasing based on a range of merchandise, or even based on seasonal characteristics here. When we're purchasing from our vendor, Core-Mark being one of our candy suppliers, we can use primary vendor or lowest cost vendor, or even the vendor list, so you have a lot of flexibility excuse me, in how you do that buying. I select Core-Mark, and the recommended order gives me two different opportunities here, two different options. Either those items, only those items that I am low on, and of course the ArborPro definition of low is that the on-hand plus any other items that we have on order, on other purchase orders, the on-hand plus the on-order is compared to the order point, and then the order multiple is recommended to us. So this will limit us to just those things that are in a low position in the inventory. All items, on the other hand, will give us anything that happens to belong to that particular vendor. So I'm going to select need to order. And this is a much faster process than walking around the floor with that yellow legal pad and trying to remember exactly what was in that empty space on the shelf. We have a summary line up here, and we have a quick review of the items that ArborPro is currently saying, hey, you're going to be in trouble on if you don't reorder these. I can do my review, and I can change quantities. I can change order points. I can change what is being recommended to me. I can do an edit in inventory. I can identify how much money that I am spending and decide whether or not I want to replenish merchandise to that particular extreme. I can do edits like this. I can say I'm going to delete this item because I don't want any more of these in the store. I can modify the quantity. This item here at York, mini patties, it's recommending 2 cases. Now, how do I know it's a case? Because down here, my pack quantity for this item, this is the detail information on this item up here. It's telling me that my pack quantity is 200. So I buy these in jars of 200 at a time. And this also tells me that when I was first entering this item into inventory, I set my order point at 100. Since I currently have 66, the order recommendation process, compared my 66 on hand to my 100 and said, hey, it's time that you replenish this and that you should order another 2 jars, in other words, another 400 of these. If I disagree with this, I can always change my quantity. I can do an edit, and I can change this to 1 only instead. And then Arbor Pro recalculates that, dropped what I was going to spend down to $839.91. So if I'm watching pennies, if I'm paying attention to open to buy very closely, then I'm able to know how much money I'm going to spend before I actually spend it. The next step in the order recommendations process is going to be to convert it to a purchase order. And if I select convert it to a purchase order here, convert it to a purchase order, if I convert it to an open purchase order, it's going to update the on order quantity for these items in the inventory file. So the purchase order is going to become basically a benchmark for us. And as I said, it's going to drop those quantities into the on order field. I'm in editing a purchase order, and if I want to, I can still do some additional modifications here to that purchase order. If I decided here my fudge brownies that I wanted to change that quantity one more time, I can do that. I can change that to a quantity of 3. So even after a purchase order has been finalized, I've got the ability to make changes and modify it as well. When this purchase order is complete, the next step, of course, is going to either hand it to the rep. We may want to print the purchase order off if the rep has come in to visit with us. We hand them that purchase order. We can also email these orders to our vendors and do the purchasing electronically. We can also create a purchase order on the fly, as I mentioned, if we're working with a rep and we have decided to buy items from that rep that are currently not part of our inventory file. In here, we can select a vendor, and we can decide that we want to buy additional T-shirts or Aloha shirts from him, and I'm just going to select him here, and so we can buy additional T-shirts and Aloha shirts, and just have a really good time doing that. The recommended order that has become the purchase order, again, has updated our quantities in the inventory file, the items that are currently on order. And when that shipment comes in, when I'm going to receive that purchase order, I simply go to the receiving button over here. I'm going to select receive my purchase order. This is the summary of that purchase order. And I can select receive it, and I've got the option of doing it either with a detachable scanner that I can take over to the receiving dock, or I can receive it manually, where I'm going to do a comparison to the purchase order that I have created. I'm going to compare that to the invoice that has just come in, and the kinds of things that we need to identify when we're doing merchandise receiving. We need to check to see whether or not the quantity that we have received is actually present on the invoice. And if it's not present on the invoice, then we delete that item from the purchase order, because we certainly can't receive it. Now, if we want to, we can also back order an item. So if I am receiving this, it tells me that I had ordered 2, asking me if I have received the 2. No, I have not. I can receive, and then I can edit the quantity and change that quantity here to 1. And then Arbor Pro will come back and ask me if I want to back order that item. So I can leave it on order if this particular vendor is going to deliver this to me a little bit later on. And if I select back order this item, then it's going to allow me to receive the 1 and keep the remaining 1 on inventory. So I can work my way through the purchase order here. I'm only going to change what's different. I'm only going to modify those things where I may have had a cost increase or where I may have had a deviation from the quantity that I had ordered. If I would like to receive, and I note that the cost has increased, of course we want to pass that cost increase along to our customer, so I'm going to indicate, yes, I am receiving the one, but I'm going to edit my cost so that I can make my pricing adjustment as well. And this item has now gone to $16.65, and I click OK. And then I want to change my standard cost, which is the equivalent of catalog cost. As you can see, we're keeping vendor, last, standard, and average cost, and these are affected through the receiving process. So I've now raised my costs here to $16.65. As I complete the receiving cost, it's going to adjust my last cost and also my average cost. Now this is at a very low gross profit margin of 33.11% based on this cost increase that I've just done. So I'm now going to take this to $1.09. Again, we like to pass along those cost increases to our customers. Here is the indicator that this item is currently on order, because this is the step that we're in here. Once I complete receiving this item, then this 24 here that is represented by this pack quantity of 1 is going to update my on hand to 27. So again, two functions here, two really great functions that we can do when we're in the receiving area. Again, we can identify any of those cost increases, and it's those cost increases that can certainly cause us difficulties. If we ignore them, we can find ourselves at a point where we may be selling at 5% or 3% over our gross profit margin. Click on OK here, and that allows that item to be received, and I have updated the cost on that item, and I have updated the price as well. The final step in this process is to simply update the inventory from the received quantity, because everything else that was shipped to me from that vendor agrees with everything else on this purchase order. So not only have I managed to accomplish stock rebalancing, but I've done this in a very, very short period of time. Probably the most amount of time that is involved in this process here is talking to the driver who's delivering ours to us. This is that item that was on back order. Major part of the software is developing the receiving report. This becomes the audit trail and is going to be attached ultimately to our invoice, and this becomes the receiving document against which we're going to pay for this invoice. We send this over to the person that signs the checks and the checkbooks. And the receiving report is a very, very good document, because it identifies those items that received and those items that we did not receive in inventory. So this is a peek at what that receiving report is going to look like. The companion part to receiving also may be price tag printing. If you're doing shelf tags or whether you're doing price tags individually for the items, as you're receiving those items, the items that have been identified as eligible for price tag printing, if you remember, we set that in the options screen over here. Those items that have been identified as eligible for price tag printing, those price tags are going to be automatically created for us on the strength of having received those items, because that option was enabled. And then the next step would be to move directly to price tag printing, and our price tags are available in 4 different sizes that will be tailored to the size of the merchandise item that you're going to put out there on the floor. Price tags are very elegant. They are not only the barcode, but they're also the description of the item. Obviously, the retail price of the item is on those tags, and then the item's barcode number and also the manufacturer's part number is on it. There's another way to do merchandise receiving quick and dirty. You may not have created a purchase order. You received non-PO. allows you to do merchandise receiving very, very quickly for items, again, that you have not created a purchase order for. So I'm going to select the kettle corn here because Mr. Vick has dropped off the corn, and I am selecting him, and I am going to simply drop down to the on-hand, the receipt quantity here, and I'm going to tell it that I'm receiving one, and then I do an OK, and that's finished. So again, two very time-saving utility areas within the software, and these allow you to do stock rebalancing, control your inventory levels, and control your costs, control your prices, and save you as the manager a tremendous amount of time as you're doing these things. Just in passing, just one more quick comment here. In virtually any area in ArbaPro, whether we're in purchasing or whether we're in receiving, we can also do a backdoor over to the inventory file if we need to. So if I have an item that is currently not part of inventory, I can also select Add, and this will take me directly to inventory. So in parallel with doing either my purchasing or my receiving, I can move over here, and then I can add that item to the inventory file. So that's a little bit about purchasing and receiving, and other than selling merchandise at your register, the two most important things you can do for your inventory are purchasing and receiving. Merchandise goes out the door and hopefully makes you a lot of money through the cash register. Your stock needs to be replenished. Your inventory needs to be brought back up to certain levels. Certain times of the year you need to achieve even higher levels of inventory. Very important that you manage your purchasing and your receiving correctly, because it's going to affect the value of your inventory, it's going to affect your profitability in both the short term and the long term. So we're going to talk a little bit about these two functions, purchasing here and receiving here, and how they affect the value of your inventory. The purchasing function really is very cool. It has got two different parts to it. Order recommendations allows you to effectively have an assistant manager who's going to walk the floor for you and who is going to look at the areas that have low stock and is going to make suggestions to you that you replace or replenish some of those items. The recommended order process is based on, as you had seen earlier, the positions in the inventory on hand. Your on hand as it relates to your minimum stock level, we call it the order point. And when the on hand quantity reaches that order point or below, then recommended orders is going to recommend that you reorder what you've also preset, which is your order multiple. So you have complete and total control over what ArbaPro is going to recommend that you replace. The purchase order function allows you a little bit freer a hand. Damn it.